Hi, everybody. Welcome to Google News Initiative's training on environmental tools to cover environmental journalism. This is part of our week-long summer intensive. Every day at this time for an hour, you can come here and learn a new skill. Today, it's environmental tools. Tomorrow, we'll be doing data visualization. And on Friday, we'll be playing with Google Earth, which is really fun. So be sure to come back for that. I'm here with my colleague, Michael Grant, and he will be taking you through all of these wonderful tools today. All right, let us go on. So this training is part of one of 3 parts of the Google News Initiative. We're the Google News Lab. We're the journalists who work with journalists all around the world. Michael and I work with journalists in the United States, trying to bring you tools to make your job a little bit easier, a little bit faster, so you can concentrate on the really hard stuff. Here's the schedule for the week. You know where to find us. And you can also go to our news training website, which Michael will show you in a minute. So I'm going to hand it off now to Michael Grant, trainer extraordinaire, and he's going to take you through environmental journalism.
Awesome. So before we get started, I just want to kind of give you guys some tools or tips for following along. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to drop them into the chat area of the YouTube chat. And Maggie will work hard behind the scenes to surface answers to those questions. We'll also be sharing links along the way. Just to make it a little bit more easier to go ahead and visit some of the web pages that we're sharing. So just kind of sit back and relax and follow along as best you can, and we'll make this as easy and painless as possible to follow along. So today we're going to talk about environmental journalism, and we know that this is a really great area of emphasis for a lot of newsrooms. It's a growing coverage area. We also understand that in the journalism conversation, there is realization that readers are very much interested in environmental journalism. And so there's a number of tools that that we have here, as well as resources and things that help educate users as well as journalists on the impacts of environmental change, on everything from the animals to everyday life. And so this should be a really exciting training, and stay tuned. We'll go ahead and get this started. So one of the sites that I'd love for folks to go ahead and visit is sustainability.google. And here you'll be able to explore some of Google's efforts in the environmental and sustainability space. So there's a number of different stories or posts about Google's efforts, as well as some really interesting tools that you can go ahead and explore, and we'll talk a little bit more about those. There's 2 places on the site in particular that we'll zero in on today. So by visiting insights.sustainability.google, you'll land on a page that gives you a couple of different options on where you can go. And so today we're going to first focus on the Environmental Insights Tracker, which is a really great tool for monitoring the emissions of cities. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Here's just a kind of a quick overview of what you'll see when you visit the Environmental Insight Explorer. But there's a number of things that are here. So it's mapping emissions, there's ways to measure, and there's like little sliders and stuff which we'll go ahead and take a look at. So I'm just gonna pop out here and follow a link over there. So this is what you'll see when you land on the space. So as you can see, this is a snapshot of Menlo Park where I am currently located. And so this is a bridge here, but you can see a map, like an outline of the city map. And then it's going to break out details about environmental emissions into three categories. The first is building emissions, the next one is transportation emissions, and then finally rooftop solar potential. And that means like a reduction of emissions. And then when you dig deeper into this interface, which I will do shortly to demo the tool, we give you a little bit more of a deeper dive into what those metrics mean, what's driving those metrics, and how you can even take a look at the data for yourself. So let me now pop out into sustainability.google. And I'm just going to navigate here to the Environmental Insights Tracker. And this is insights.sustainability.google. All right, and so this is the landing page for this project. And again, you get a breakdown of what you can expect to be able to read about. But for now, I'll just type in my city, Menlo Park. I should note that more cities are being added, and you can also request to have your city added. And as we go forward in development, they'll be adding more cities. All right, so now that I'm in the Menlo Park area, here's where we can see kind of an overhead view of the city with an outline, and then we have a number of different areas that we can explore. What's really helpful too are these tooltips. So this kind of helps us give some context around the controls and what some of these indicators mean. So this area lets us explore and customize building emissions. And we say customize, that means that we can reduce or add cars on the road, for instance, to see the changes. So why not go ahead and click this explore and customize for building emissions. All right, so now it's showing me the map on the right, and I can see which buildings are residential versus non-residential here shown in the map. And on the left, we have a breakdown of a lot of the different metrics here. So we get sourcing, we have time period. There's some key assumptions about the data here. So that kind of speaks a lot to the methodology. And then we can see how the lay of the land fares, right? So residential emissions versus non-residential, which potentially would be commercial. And here we can adjust the values. So I'll hit this toggle switch. And now we can say, okay, what if, we had less electricity used in percent, right? So that would have a positive impact on our environment. But let's say if non-residential, I'm going to adjust those values. You can see if we went up in electricity here, from the grid, right, then we're also getting a positive here. Also, what's helpful is that you'll notice these little round eye icons, okay, and that's like a little information tooltip. So you can get an idea of what it means to adjust the different values and a summary of the different parts of the interface here. So energy use intensity, electric grid carbon intensity, a lot of pretty scientific and technical things are called out and described here so that you'll understand more about what it means to adjust some of these values. All right, and then that's the same if I were to go back. You'll see a summary of each one of these um, categories. So transportation emissions, for instance. This one's pretty cool too because you can say like more or less bikes on the road. Why don't I go ahead and try that? So you can measure inbound and outbound traffic. And also there's an in-boundary traffic. So that's all the activity that's happening within the municipality. So let's say in boundary, we had, more bikes on the road or, more cycling. Why don't I do something dramatic like 5, and we'll add, we'll go down in the number of automobiles. All right, and that's how we're getting positives. Awesome. So moving on. Okay, so next we'll go ahead and take a look at another area of the sustainability.google website. And this one's called Your Plan, Your Planet. And it's a really cool tool. It's one of my favorites. And it just allows you to learn how everyday decisions can benefit the environment, or how much they even impact the environment. So this is what you'll see when you land on the page. And let me just go ahead and come out again and take a look at this myself. All right. So when you land on the Your Plan, Your Planet website, it'll ask you to go ahead and get started. And it kind of gears you up to, to understand what you're looking at. So we all want a healthy planet, and it takes small choices that can make a change. And so we're going to be able to see what those small choices mean. So let's get started. You have these really beautiful animations and illustrations. And so you can discover how to reduce food, water, and energy waste, and learn about the circular economy to extend your life, or to extend the life of your stuff. And one of my favorite ones here is water consumption. I happen to be kind of a water nerd. So let's go ahead and take a look at that, where we can try simple tricks to make every drop count. All right, so clicking this, it says make every drop count. The average American family uses 300 gallons of water each day, and that would fill 3 swimming pools in a year. Learn things you can do at home to cut down on water waste. All right, so this is really cool. I'm going to hit continue. And now I'm presented this interactive interface with a question of how many minutes is my usual shower. Wow, okay. So I have this classic 7-minute shower routine. And when I'm being nice to myself, I'll go 10. And I really try to keep it within 7 to 10 minutes so as to conserve water. So when I adjust the slider here, you can see that it's telling me how much 4 minutes of shower equals to. So I'm going to just drag it over to 7. And it says in 1 year, that would fill 22 hot tubs. That's 6,388 gallons of water used. Wow. Right. One thing that I don't have is a smart shower head. So if we toggle this on for a smart shower head, it says water smart, low flow shower heads use 20% less water than others. All right, so that's one way that even at a 7-minute shower, I could also reduce my water consumption by 20%. So this is a really cool tool, I think, for anybody who has an interest in learning more about their behaviors and how they might modify some behaviors in order to have a positive impact on their environment. it's also really cool to bring, like, walk your kids through this, you know, during the stay at home, so that they can understand things that they can do, and that might be a fun game. All right, so moving on. Next, we're going to look at monitoring environmental impact. And so one really awesome tool is the Global Surface Water Explorer. All right, and this tool is, they like to refer themselves as a virtual time machine. And essentially, they're looking at the past 3.5 decades of water distribution. And that means the amount of water that's present or not present over, the last, 3.5 decades. All right. And what's really cool about this is that there are toggle switches where you can see water occurrence from way back in 1984 all the way to 2018. And these tell us a lot, right? So you want to observe the scale here. It's a color scale. And we can see when there's sometimes water or if there's always water in certain places. Okay, we can also observe the seasonality. So is the seasonal water or permanent water? All right. And then water occurrence as well as annual water recurrence. So it's a really wonderful tool. You can go to global-surface-water.appspot.com. All right, next is how we can, so that was like a data visual way to look at water availability. And so one other way that we can observe the change in water levels is with time lapses. And so Google Earth Engine has a compilation of time lapses of different places. And this example happens to be water, but we can also look at things like growing cities or the melting of ice caps or regions with large amounts of ice. And so why don't we go ahead and take a look at this? This is actually the Aral Sea. And I would love to just kind of pop out so you guys can see that as well. So what we're going to do is go to this time lapse. All right, and so this is Google Earth time lapse. You can visit this by going to earthengine.google.com/timelapse. And there's a number of them that you'll see on the left-hand column of different areas in the world where we already have a time lapse available. But here we're looking at the Aral Sea, and the interface is basically a snapshot overhead of satellite imagery. And then down here at the bottom, you have a scale over time, right? Or snapshots over time. And so by clicking play, it'll play through year over year where there's a satellite image available. It'll play it like a video. So I just hit play, and now we can see it cycling through the years and how this water area is just completely dried up. Wow, that's pretty dramatic. All right. Again, you can look at other places like in Alaska. I just go ahead and click over here to Alaska, and now we can see time lapse here. For how dramatic it looks visually for the snow to melt. All right, so this is now viewing Columbia Glacier Retreat. Another one that I like to look at is Las Vegas. because we can see how dramatic it has been for the city to start from such a small place to a really sprawling city. So this is 1984 when it starts. And then when we hit play here, we can really see how dense it's gotten there. All right. Great. There are a couple of other interesting places we can go to observe more. Okay, so by visiting developers.google.com/Earth Engine, there's a tab called Time Lapse here, and here is a really great place for folks who are doing reporting in any one of these regions to be able to take some of these time lapses and bring them into places like their website, or start to do reporting with visuals using time lapses. And so this is just a really great gathering of a lot of time lapses, and you're getting assets that can be either the YouTube video to embed that with labels or no labels if you want the GIF, and so on. So there's really lots of ways to take that and make it your own. And so you can visit this to use those assets in your project. Awesome. All right, so next we're going to take a look at globalforcewatch.org. And this is just a really great site because it compiles data from different sources and allows us to see things like deforestation, as well as fires. And before we jump into the tool, I'd love to just kind of call out one of the things that I think it's interesting for. So NPR did a really great story about flooding in Sierra Leone. And my wife happens to be from Sierra Leone in Freetown. She's here now. But this is something that the region suffers from, is flooding. And so in this really compelling photo here, we can see the effects of it. And so what I want to do is go ahead and pop out so that we can go ahead and see what that would look like to explore the Global Forest Watch. So let me do that now. This is actually rainy season right now in Sierra Leone, and so there's already video surfacing in her WhatsApp account of these devastating floods that happen oftentimes during the rainy season. All right, so now we're here at globalfishingwatch.org, and we can go ahead and navigate to the map. And here's a really useful how-to guide if you're just getting your feet wet here. I'm gonna bypass that just because I wanna go ahead and skip over to just taking full control of this. So down here in the bottom left, there's a search area, or you can just go ahead and explore on your own. You can already see the data just being pulled in and mapping to the map area here. I'm gonna type in Freetown. Looks like it popped in there for a second. All right, so I'll just go ahead and go to Sierra Leone and see what happens here. All right, great. So here's a map area of Sierra Leone. Freetown is way over here, close to the sea. And as we zoom down, we can see satellite imagery as well as what the data is presenting about deforestation in Sierra Leone. So it tells you about tree cover, where forest loss is occurring, and that's a big reason why the floods are so significant there. According to reporting by NPR, a lot of the landslides and mudslides are coming from where the hills are, and so when they remove the tree cover from the bottom of the hills, it really makes them susceptible. So we could explore that in great detail by looking at certain areas of this and going further into what tree cover looks like. All right, so this is a legend, and then there's more analysis here. We can draw our own boundaries and shapes to zero in on certain parts. So there's a lot here that you can dive deep into. Here's land cover, toggle switches. I won't bore you too much with all of the details, but I just want to give you guys kind of a summary of how this looks here. All right. So that's globalforcewatch.org. Another thing, if we wanted to get geeky, is to you can totally type in a term like Freetown mudslide in Google dataset search, and now we can also then find data that helps to speak to the story that we're trying to tell. So in this case, I might do Freetown mudslide and find a data set that helps me tell the story with data as well as visuals. So just wanted to throw that in there, that's a really great way to pair data storytelling with your environmental storytelling and the visuals from a map like that. All right, next is fires.globalwatch.org. So this too is a resource within the same website, but this one also tracks fires. Looks like it's trying to load here. All right, let me see. Okay, so I'm gonna view the map. Looks like something's up with their site right now. Oh, maybe it just took a while to load. Okay, cool. So you can use this menu here to select a country, the United States. Here we go. And then subregions. California definitely has fire. It's a region that's known for fire seasons. And so why don't we go ahead and take a look at this, and it generates a report here of fires happening there. So this is one way that you can dive into the data here for California. And we also know that you could go here and then visually navigate to different parts. So those are two really cool and really powerful features. And again, here's more filtering. You can adjust the transparency layers if you needed to see information a little bit easier on the map. So this is just a really full-featured tool with data flowing into it that allows you to discover more about what's happening and where when it comes to forest fire. All right. So let's talk about monitoring the high seas. All right. So this is a really, this report here, Looting the Seas, talks about the impact of loss of mackerel in the sea, which is a staple. And it also goes deep into what the fishing industry is like. And so you can see here just how expansive the fishing industry is. You know, and this is just a snapshot of one port. But there's lots of ports, and in the fishing industry is huge. And, you know, not only does fishing, you know, impact, you know, our food supply, but, you know, there are, you know, fish in the sea that depend on certain kinds of fish. And so, you know, by impacting certain types of fish in the sea or different types of animals, it may have an adverse effect on other fish, and as a result on the industry and our food supply. And so this report goes into deep detail about this very issue. It was really wonderful reporting, and I want to show you a tool that will allow us to kind of go deeper into what it's like to explore the fishing industry. And so this report was by ICIJ. It might be a little older, but they do updates on their storytelling as well. And so it's a really wonderful thing to check out. But what we're going to do is go ahead and take a look at the Globalfishingwatch.org, which is another really powerful tool for observing the fishing industry and activity even over time. So I'm heading over to globalfishingwatch.org. All right, and so this is the site landing page. All right, and so Global Fishing Watch is promoting ocean sustainability through greater transparency, and transparency is a really big deal. You know, we really want, the idea is for countries and around the world to be transparent about the activity of fisheries. And so, you know, we'd be able to then regulate or understand, you know, what kinds of fishing are having major impacts on food supply. And so this map allows us to analyze some of the questions that come up from the activity that we might be concerned about. So clicking the button brings you into this interface. And there's lots of data loading in here, so it has to load up. And actually, before we dive into the data, I just want to hit this little button on the top left-hand corner. You can see this hamburger menu. And so this gives you a lot of information about the project. What's really great is that there are tutorials. I'll just go ahead and quickly open that up so we can see a little bit more about that. So here's a frequently asked questions. You can search it. There's video tutorials. There's how-to guides. So I really encourage you, because it can be a little bit overwhelming when you first jump in. But these are very detailed tutorials about how you can use the Global Fishing Watch. Okay, so there's ways to select date ranges, to get just an introduction of the map. So highly recommend that you give that a look. All right, so I'm gonna just kind of pop back out here. What's really awesome is that we can look at vessels. So we can find vessels here. This is one vessel that I did a search for before. It's called the Alcantara. And for this vessel, I'll zoom in here so you can see the activity. Uh-oh. All right, it's loading data. Give it just a second. Anyway, you can search for vessels that you're interested in reporting on, for instance. And so here is the course of this vessel, so where it goes to and from. Additionally, there are other layers that you can control. So there's controls of the base map that would control your visuals. Some of the activity layers are here. So we can see here that we can turn off layers, and sometimes turning off layers that you're not interested in will help data load faster. You can see boundaries and outlines for what fishing zones belong to what countries. Zooming out here so we can see a little bit more. Uh-oh. Let's turn some of those back on. We can edit layers, so we can get rid of layers completely. So there's just a ton here that you can play with. And then this map here at the bottom, over time, if we press play, we can see activity. So you can see where things are lighting up. One thing that's really great too is that you can see zones that are restricted to fishing. And so this is actually, so there's real-time tracking of vessels. And so if you see vessels going to an area where there shouldn't be vessels, then that might be a cue that maybe some reporting should be done. You can see vessels here being very close to this exclusive economic zone, for instance, and they're getting really close over here. So that's kind of interesting. I wonder what that's about. So there might be a story to tell in some of this. All right. So it's really great that all of this data is in our fingertips, flowing into a map. And then we can start to ask questions or look for interesting trends or things that might deserve to be explored. All right. Cool. So at this point, that concludes our environmental reporting session this week. But before we go and before I hand this off to Maggie, I just wanted to let you know that you can visit g.co/news training. And here is a website with all free resources. And they're designed to help reporters verify and tell news stories. And there's environmental reporting, there's investigative journalism, data visualization. So there's a lot there for free that you can take advantage of. So I want to just encourage you to visit the g.co/news training site to get more deep dives into some of the tools that we have to offer.
Yes, thanks, Michael. That was great. There were a lot of great questions. I think we handled most of them, but if you have further questions, feel free to email us. Our emails are right there on that screen. And I'm very impressed that there are even people all the way from India who are tuning in today. So we got a lot of insights about water usage. I think we're all going to make our showers a little bit shorter now. Or get special water-saving shower heads. We saw how to track wildfires and fishing poachers so we can catch the fishing pirates. So there are a lot of really great tools that you can learn and use right away. And if you'd like to take a closer look again, you can come back to this video. We put the links in the very top of the chat and along the way, and the chat will remain up with the video. And you can also go to the g.co/news training website and get a certificate for going through the news training courses there. So thanks so much. We will see you again tomorrow, same time, same place.
Thank you.
Thanks.